Viewpoint from Overseas. I'm your host, Faraz Darwesh. First, we'll discuss the victory of Democrats from Alabama. This is a victory after more than 2 decades, and this is pretty welcoming in some of the Democrat circles. So we will discuss in details on this topic, and then we'll discuss the Meghnad Desai has written a book with the name of the Raisina Model, which brings up a question that can or whether India can break or not. So we'll go in deep dive on this topic. Riaz Haq has done some research and he is with us today on the show. And then we'll discuss Pakistan has refused to renew the licenses of 29 NGOs, and most of those NGOs are Western NGOs. Why Pakistan has done that? What will be the outcomes? What will be the implications? I have with me Riaz Haq, Ms. Azam. Riaz, first, let's begin with the Democrats winning the Alabama after pretty much 25 years. Pretty welcoming. I guess I'm pretty sure you're welcoming it. Tell us about this. Why it happened?
Yeah, so it's a major upset. Alabama is a deep red state in deep south, and the seat that was they had the special election for was vacated by Senator Jeff Sessions, who was picked as Attorney General by President Trump. So there were 2 candidates, Roy Moore, who used to be the Chief Justice of Alabama Supreme Court, and Doug Jones, who was a prosecutor, a federal prosecutor, U.S. Attorney in Alabama. Now, prior to this election, there were some serious allegations of sexual harassment, even pedophilia, against Roy Moore. And that actually turned off a number of Republicans against him. In fact, even the senior Republican in Alabama, the senator from there, Senator Shelby, said he had not voted for Roy Moore. So Democrats had a chance, and they actually capitalized on it. The results are very interesting. About 3/4 of the white men still voted for the Republican candidate Roy Moore. 2/3 of white women voted for Roy Moore, but he still lost because more than 90% of the blacks voted for Doug Jones. They basically tilted the election in his favor. As a result of it, Doug Jones won by about 1.5%.
Which is very, very small.
Well, it's big enough. I think it's so large that there's no recount. Automatic recount happens only if it's within 0.5%. This is like 3 times that, about 1.5%. So it's been a very welcome victory, particularly for those who were concerned, about Roy Moore. Not only was he accused of pedophilia, he's also a racist. He wanted to bring slavery back. He also was very anti-Muslim. He said Muslims should not serve in either the military or the Congress. He was very upset that Congressman from Minnesota, Congressman Allison, took his oath of office. Keith Ellison took his oath of office on the Quran. He said this should not have been allowed. So he's a very racist, bigoted, kind of Islamophobic person. And there's a lot of people very happy that he actually lost. Even some Republicans are relieved that he lost because they would then have to deal with the fact that he is accused of all these serious allegations. If he had been elected, they would have to...
He would have been a liability.
They would have to launch some ethics investigations against him.
Right. And they have already faced, Michael Flynn and so on and so forth, which they are already going through. Ms. Nod, you see this?
Of course. I mean, no doubt about it. It's a very good day for Democrats and, of course, for United States also to have a person like Doug Jones, whose fame is that he prosecuted 2 ex-KKK people who burned the house of a black family, So of course he's a powerful man and he is very righteous, if you will, as far as among the candidates. And
he believes in civil rights.
That's true. He believes in civil rights and all. Besides, on the other hand, Roy Moore, who wanted to not only slavery back, slavery's 13th Amendment, but he wants everything after 10th Amendment should be abolished, which includes 19th Amendment also, which is the which is basically right to vote to women, and which is like 25th or 24th Amendment, which allows that if president dies, so vice president will be president. So it was a very good day for US. I mean, it is some little hope. But overall, if you see, Doug Jones is a very liberal Democrat, and I think that these traditional Democrats, they are not going to give anything now. Democratic Party does not need Schumers and Pelosi's and these people. They need people like Doug Jones, who are very clear. They don't kind of waver between conservative and sometimes hugging them.
Right, he's a true liberal.
He's a true liberal.
Okay.
And that's what country needs, Democrats need, and country needs as well.
At this time. Right. Let's take a flight over to South Asia and let's discuss this book that Meghnad Desai has written about the Raisina Model, where he brings up a question that whether India can break or not. India hasn't, since 1947, India has not broken further. Riaz, how do you see this?
So let's first do a quick intro who Meghnad Desai is and why he wrote the Raisina Model.
Yep.
Meghnad Desai is a British baron. He is a member of the British House of Lords, a Labour member. He is originally from India, and he actually is a graduate of University of Bombay. And then he also studied here in the United States at University of Pennsylvania. And the Raisina Model that he's written about, Raisina is actually the name of the hill, the Raisina Hill, where the Indian capital buildings are located. The Indian President's House, Rashtrapati Bhavan, and the Indian Parliament. What's called the Lutyens Delhi, the Delhi that was built by the British, the new capital, after they moved it from Calcutta in 1911. So it's about India as a federation, India as a country. Now, one of the things that, we have this Bangladesh anniversary coming up in the next in the next week, actually, on the 16th of December, when Pakistan broke up into two pieces. So this question of whether India can break up is actually a very timely question from that perspective. Now, some of the reasons that are cited for Bangladesh separation from Pakistan, the breakup of Pakistan, those reasons exist in India as well. He talks about some of these reasons. One of the things he talks about, for example, is that in India, there are a number of states that are not happy with the way their federation is set up. One of the problems that he points out in India is that the larger states completely dominate Indian politics. Because the way the parliament obviously has representation based on population, so the 3 or 4 states in the north, extend the Hindi belt extending from UP and Bihar all the way to Maharashtra and Gujarat, they actually dominate Indian politics because they're larger states. The other thing that he talks about is that the upper house of Indian parliament, which is like the US Senate or the Pakistani Senate, is called Rajya Sabha. Even in Rajya Sabha, the representation is based on population. So even in Rajya Sabha, these same states dominate. In the United States, one of the things they have done is, regardless of the size of the state, of the population, each state has 2 senators. So it gives them kind of equal weight. In Pakistan, it's the same. There are 4 provinces. Each province has the same number of seats in the Senate. So try to equalize the power between the different federating units. But in India, that's not the case.
His point is that this will build up the resentment.
It can create a lot of problems.
Okay.
Now, in U.S., let me give you an example. The population of 41 states in the United States is smaller than the population of Los Angeles.
Sure.
So those 41 states mean they have 82 members in the Senate, which is like more than 82% of the Senate consists of representatives from places which are smaller
than Los Angeles.
Right. Now, the other thing that he points out is that there are big differences between economic disparities between states. For example, the income in Maharashtra and in Gujarat is like 4 or 5 times higher than the income in UP and Bihar. Huge gap.
But that's the same in US.
No, but in US, the difference, what they do is they have this tax system which redistributes wealth. One of the things that happens, for example, in US is that every dollar that California contributes, California gets only 80 cents back. Okay? Whereas states in the South, like South Carolina, for example, for every dollar it contributes, it gets $8 back from the federal government. So they try and redistribute through taxation. In India, that's not the case. So the difference has grown in India. For example, in 1960, the income levels in Maharashtra, income level in Maharashtra was like 2 times the income in Bihar. And now it is about 5 times. So it's growing. So that's an issue. So there are a number of issues. Then there are language differences, ethnic differences, regional differences. He even talks about beef, that the beef is a big issue for Hindus in the north, in particularly in UP and Bihar, but it's not a big issue in the south. In the south, he says that a lot of Hindus actually eat not just meat, but many of them eat beef. Then also the lower caste Hindus, generally, they don't have a problem eating beef. They eat not only meat, but also beef. So he says, if you try to impose that one standard on everybody, say, hey, you can only do this, you can't do that, that's going to create all sorts of problems. So he says there are significant issues on the horizon that India needs to worry about. And then he said they need to take certain actions in order to preserve the unity.
So they may take the actions, right? I mean, India is evolving just like any other state.
So that's the thing he raises.
So
the question is, they evolve, will they? No, actually the problem is they're going the other way. For example, this beef issue is being raised now. I mean, he's warning against these kinds of issues. The issue against Dalits, the issue against eating of beef.
But Reyes, all of this always existed. These are not new issues.
No, but they had their big. It was not as big an issue. These issues, the cultural issues, under the Congress Party. Now under Modi, they are becoming big.
But issues. Modi is only here on a temporary basis. It's a democracy.
How do you know that?
He may not.
How do you know? He's very popular. He's one of the most popular prime ministers India has had. And all the surveys indicate that he's going to be there for a while, and he's actually changing the country in ways. I mean, like Trump is changing the United States in ways that are very, that could be a serious problem for this country.
Right.
Yeah, this is, see, in 1965, when there was agitations, riot, he mentioned this thing also in his book, that when those riots happened, to have Hindi as a national language. So that time this division came, but of course that time 62 war was just over, and of course there is a China debacle, quote unquote, was there, so that kind of united the people, so they didn't go very far in that. So he did these kind of thing that he said that 45% of the Muslim population live in Riyaz's word, this Maharashtra to UP and these states, And
there are plenty of Muslims in South as well.
Yeah, no, but 45% are there, so many, you're right. There are
51% of the Indian population as a whole and 45% of Muslims.
They live in these states. So there is a big division. However, India is the time when India was divided. India was in very small cantons, in small pieces. You have a princely states, you have East Pakistan, you have West Pakistan. So India was from that time, and India had this paranoia of some kind of security paranoia that with these states they have to deal with. So what 1948, they have Operation Polo, they took over Hyderabad state, And then East Pakistan also, 1962 war, Pakistan has a very good opportunity because see, northeastern states call India the mainland. They don't even consider themselves as and he mentioned this thing that those people call the New Delhi government as a mainland Indians.
And a lot of Indians don't recognize them as Indians.
That's correct. And recently he gave one very interesting example that some restaurant in New Delhi, there is one woman who is wearing northeastern dress. So she was not allowed to come in because she was inappropriately dressed up. So these kind of fault lines he talked about in
he talks about all the Adivasis, the tribal people, the native original people.
And people
they have
don't
still
know
not been given citizenship. A lot of them are not
and
recognized.
a lot of people
as
don't even know about him. That's what he mentioned. He said that a lot of Indians don't even know about it. And it's a very interesting way he is. I have yet to read.
Well, I mean, I have no doubt that there are a lot of resentment among the communities in India. But economy has been booming in India.
But not everybody is participating. That's one of the issues in India. As I just mentioned, some states have done extremely well, while others are really laggards. I mean, especially, as I told you, the difference used to be 2x between UP, Bihar, and Maharashtra. Now it's about 5x.
You see, the thing is that the economy booming, how do you know economy booming? Because you see the numbers, right? I mean, those are numbers that should become India shining India. Mr. Vajpayee's time. But why Mr. Vajpayee lost the elections? Because economy is, it has to trickle down to the people. I mean, it doesn't, as long as it doesn't trickle down, who cares? It is 8% growth, Because the normal people who are the real voters, they have to get the benefit of the economy. If they don't get, they will take you up. So, and now India's economy is not 8%, it's like 4-5%. I mean, it is not quite booming, and the situation is not very good. And you see it the way Mr. Modi is nervous nowadays. Now he's talking about...
He's using Pakistan, he's using Muslims as a card to try and divert attention from the real problem.
His power, right? To retain his popularity. Understand?
He was even blaming his own ex-military chief, General Deepak Kapoor, as a conspirator with Pakistan and Khurshid Qusuri. I mean, this level...
The Prime Minister of
Manmohan Singh. Then Mani Shankar Iyer.
They had a secret meeting. A conspiracy against India.
Secret. Everybody knew it was just an invitation. They all chatted about the India-Pakistan issue. They are liberals. They want to see...
Well, not a secret meeting.
Yeah, it's no secret meeting. It is happening in the...
Well, that's Prime Minister Modi, right?
But it says that the fact that he's using these things is an indication that he may be concerned that he's not able to address the real issues, so he's using these other issues
to divert the attention.
And Mr. Desai, he even said that a lot of things happening in the world, Trump winning, then the way Yugoslavia broke in. I mean, he gave all these examples around there.
Did he say anything about Pakistan? I haven't read the book.
Actually, I have to read the book, but I read a lot of articles. Like from
have you read the book yet?
No, it's not available in the United States yet.
Okay.
So these are excerpts that have been published.
So let's see what he says about Pakistan.
Yeah, because
maybe there are plenty of people who are saying Pakistan.
Yeah, I'm sure that if there was something in Pakistan, it would be in the excerpts. So I would read
this book. No. If you read his
because there are plenty of people who are predicting that Pakistan will break in next 5 years.
I'm sure of that. Yeah, but they've been predicting that forever from the very
same thing in India. They've been predicting India forever as well.
This book.
The idea here is he's not predicting that it will break up. He's pointing out the issues that
could
lead to the breakup.
It is very specific to India, so I don't see any.
Let me move to the next topic. Next topic. Pakistan has refused to renew the licenses of 29 NGOs. Most of them are Western NGOs. Raz, why such radical action?
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of a background here. It was, I think, 2011. They found out that Dr. Afridi, a doctor in Pakistan, who was working with Save the Children Fund in Pakistan, was working with the CIA and using fake polio vaccination scheme to try and find out where Bin Laden is located. Now, that actually caused some serious issues. That, after that revelation, a lot of people who would otherwise have been willing to vaccinate their children refused to do that. And
because they see them as CIA.
yeah, and the polio came back with a vengeance.
Right.
When Pakistan was actually about to get rid of polio, it came back strongly. Now, that has created suspicions about all of the NGOs in Pakistan. Now, there are about 100,000 NGOs today. There's been a very rapid growth. There were like less than 10,000 back in 2000. Now there are over 100,000 NGOs in Pakistan. So there's like one NGO for every 2,000 Pakistanis.
Plenty of
That's
so you're
a lot
saying
of
that
NGOs.
a lot of NGOs.
And they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars. Nobody knows how this money is being spent, where is it coming from, where is it going. So all of this raises a lot of suspicions about these. Now we know, frankly, you can look at it from the State Department documents, that the State Department of the United States sees these NGOs as advancing the U.S. foreign policy agenda in the countries where they operate. So there is a connection, there's a government connection. Then there is also this issue that a lot of the academics believe that there is also a neoliberal agenda. Neoliberal agenda is, what they call the Washington Consensus, where they want to promote basically complete openness, meaning that there should be no borders, that there should be full trade everywhere, no restrictions on anything. There should be global labor and capital markets, that there should be restrictions in terms of who you can hire and fire. It should be pretty open. So those are the kinds of things that the corporate world would like to push, because that benefits the corporate world very much, people like Soros.
Okay.
So those are some of the concerns. Now, we also know there was actually a book written a few years ago by Stephen Kinzer. He's actually a New York Times journalist. He wrote a book called The Brothers. It was about two brothers, John Foster Dulles and Alan Dulles. These were brothers. John Foster Dulles was the Secretary of State of the United States, and Alan Dulles was the CIA director in the 1950s and early 60s. Now, these brothers, they used to argue that an open society is good for the United States, because if it's an open society, it's easier to influence and to corrupt these societies to do things that we would like them to do. So those are some of the issues that one has to be concerned
So you're
about.
saying Pakistan took the right decision?
No, the problem is that Pakistan does not have the capacity to differentiate between, some of these NGOs do a good job. They actually provide a real service. They're good for Pakistan. But making that distinction is where the difficulty is. Pakistan does not have the capacity or the resources to be able to make that distinction. In fact, that's what they need to focus on. Don't just, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Do a little more research, find out who's doing what, make them register. And make sure that there is greater transparency in terms of their finances and what their activities are, who's paying them and for what purpose. So those are the kinds of things that are important.
Okay, but you're saying, given the lack of capacity Pakistani state has, for now it's the right decision.
They need to at least send a warning that they're willing to stop these organizations from operating if they suspect that they may have some connections with the intelligence agencies.
Yeah, but like India, Pakistan, these countries have this thing is going on.
What thing?
That they are throwing out the NGOs, and I don't think that it is due to the capacity. They just randomly they get some intelligence.
But what do they get out of it?
Well, they just get out of it. They don't let the news go out. I mean, that is the way it is. I mean, these guys are everywhere. They are helping people here and there. These
guys you mean NGOs are everywhere.
NGOs.
Okay.
They talk to individuals. Okay. Then they tell they go outside and tell. India happening same thing. I mean, there is an article, very nice article, maybe in Washington Post or New York Times about it, and that's what they say. These all countries are getting that way. I mean, I do agree that Pakistan may not have capacity to do it, but really, I mean, there is nothing to do with capacity. They just took people out. They just get their own bloggers, and there is one of the activists. He's gone for like 4 or 5 days. Raza. It's a lot of Zahid Hussain. He wrote a very nice article on. So the thing is that this is the attitude, and it's
attitude of who?
Attitude of Pakistan agencies, government, everybody. You know, neither the political parties want this, nor the military wants. I mean, everybody. I mean, one should not be blamed for that because.
So you are saying intelligence agencies put the ban or
intelligence agencies
decline to refuse.
They take the citizens and put them in. So
decline to renew the licenses. Is that intelligence agencies?
Well, maybe it is the government does that, but they work together in these kind of things. Of course, I mean.
But you're saying it's a wrong decision. This decision makes no sense.
I don't think so. Just that it's just blanketly they just start throwing out people, and this all started after 2011, after what was mentioned about this Save the Children incident.
The Dr. Afridi case. After Bin Laden
case.
Incident, right. After Ahmedabad case.
So, you know, I mean, they have to look
I think thank you, Riyaz. Thank you, Ms. for joining audience. Keep watching Viewpoint from overseas and send us your feedback, send us your inputs. You see our email address and you see our contacts on the screen. Until next week, goodbye.